Good morning, everyone. Today we're here to talk about technology-led healthcare. We all know healthcare urgently needs a reboot. Digital solutions with the ability to reduce cost and increase scale offer much-needed solution in a world where people are living longer and healthcare systems are creaking. So we're going to talk about how we can build healthcare champions in Europe. What are the challenges, what are the opportunities, and how can we leverage technology to do this? Today on the panel we have Dag Larsson, co-founder and CEO of Dockler, and Ken Sumer, ex-founder of Gorillas and founder of a brand new healthcare company called Sugar. Both are proudly Giant Ventures portfolio companies. Dag is the founder of Dockler, which builds virtual wards to enable early discharge and chronic care management to avoid unnecessary suffering and hospital admission. Dag built Dockler to improve chronic care through new technology and has scaled Dockler to become Europe's largest virtual hospital, easing pressure on the NHS and beyond. Ken is the co-founder of a brand new company, Sugar. Ken was previously CEO and co-founder of a European mega success story called Gorillas, which was acquired by Getir in 2022 for 1.2 billion. He's now turned his attention to healthcare, building Sugar, on a mission to build a single holistic platform that brings together all of consumers' health and wellness information in a personalized fashion. And last but certainly not least, our final panelist is Julia Hawkins, general partner at Local Globe, who invests heavily in healthcare with investments including Oxford Nanopore, Accurex, CoMind, Vera, and Hertility. Now we're going to dive right in. We're going to start with a rapid-fire set of questions for the panelists. Is healthcare provision getting better or worse in Europe? Yes or no answers. Starting with you, Dag.
I think it's getting much better.
Julia?
Worse.
Khan?
Yes.
Better?
Yes.
Okay. Khan and Dag, you are both experts in building companies that put the customer experience at the center of the product. Why is this so important for healthcare solutions to be customer-centered in this fashion? Dag, why don't we start with you?
Well, I think, for us at least, the biggest challenge to scale, as we're fortunate, there's lots of reimbursement for what we do. There's lots of funding on the top level. They want to push out patients out of hospital. They want to do proactive care. So the big challenge we have is the inertia in the systems, right? There's been so many pilots and just stuff being thrown at them that hasn't really worked. So if we're not really customer-centric and really think about the workflow, the little details in the workflow, we're not going to get usage, right?
Okay.
I think that's one example.
Putting the real customer at the core of the workflow makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you have the patients, you have the clinicians, and the payers, right? You have to kind of solve for all three.
Three stakeholders to solve for. What about you, Khan?
I think how we think about this is three things. Yeah. One is understanding the problem, that it's not a system problem, because there's a lot of conversation around like system is bad, healthcare is sick care, there's no budget in preventive care. But if you think about it, if I'm dying and if you want a preventative checkup, they should better cure the ones who is dying. So there's a system and it works somehow. But even with the best system, it's a you problem. You need to take care of your health. And I think one approach of the consumer is telling the story that it's a you problem, it's a consumer problem. Understanding that was important for us. Second thing is the product. I think there are amazing companies out there that begins with science and technology, then privacy, then this and that, and suddenly consumer is like the fifth, sixth row. That's why we kind of turned it around, and like the end goal is, if you open this top 100 apps, you see that all of these things that makes you doom scroll, there's no health apps, and we basically want to do that with really going for the retention. So this is how we approach it.
We're excited for the app to launch soon.
June 6th is coming. A close beta.
Julia, you've invested in companies like Accurex, Hertility. You have a very unique perspective from your GPC at Local Globe. So what are the unique challenges of launching healthcare companies in the UK and then trying to scale them across Europe?
Yeah, well, actually, Cameron, I think there are lots of challenges that are really well documented, and maybe I would turn it around and actually talk about the opportunities.
Love it. Let's take a positive slide.
And why I'm really bullish on European healthcare. I think what's really unique about Europe, one of the things that makes it really interesting, for example, the electronic healthcare record or market is actually pretty fragmented. You do have some really big players, of course, but there are also local players. And I think for innovative companies that are building solutions for clinicians to make their make their lives easier and to optimize their days and to enable them to spend more time with patients, it actually means that there are wedges into these big behemoths, as well as partnering with the smaller players. And then, as founders know, then you obviously expand from there. So that's one of the things. Also, globally, I think that there are companies that have been, for example, like Viva, it's a behemoth when it comes to both clinical trial management and obviously working in with life science companies. And actually, as they get really big, they often also start to crack. And that means that there are, again, wedges into these companies. And so, yeah, some of the reasons why I'm really excited about building healthcare companies in Europe.
Fantastic. I mean, a lot of people think you have to go to America, but what I'm hearing is you think we can build a really big global healthcare startup from Europe.
Absolutely.
Okay, is it going to be Dag or Ken first? Both.
Yeah.
You guys are both officially outsiders from the healthcare industry. You worked at the media tech platform company before. You obviously built a quick commerce delivery service. Do you think that's given you an advantage or a disadvantage to come to the industry with fresh eyes like that? Start with you.
Starting with me. I believe it's the 200% advantage. Because the space, first of all, I think to be an entrepreneur, you need to be, you should know everything, because otherwise it scares you off. And I think healthcare industry is very complex, very big, very regulated, a lot of players, a lot of dynamics, a lot of incentives. And I'm happy that I don't know all of them. And I'm happy that I can focus on the customer and then work the problems backwards, you know? And that actually, I believe that's a big edge, because we had, for example, vetted advisors that we were talking about this, and they all said it's not possible what we can do, but I mean, because I don't know as much and I didn't, hit the wall as many times in the same industry, I can say that, like, let's give it a try, Well, let's see what life brings. But in that sense, that advantage for sure.
Amazing. Do you agree, Dag?
Yeah, I think it's slightly different because, I think it sounds like you're B2C, right, in a sense.
Yep.
And we're B2B. I was fortunate that my co-founder had worked 20 years. This is his sixth startup, right, selling into public healthcare services, right? So that was an advantage. But I think obviously, if you're a clinician especially, like your early B2B sales will be easier, right? It's better if you can empathize with the client. I think, similar to what you said, naivety can be good. Like, I'm not sure I would have, considering how many hurdles there are, right? And when you're outside, you come in with fresh pair of eyes, and perhaps you tackle it.
If you'd known how hard it is, maybe you wouldn't have.
Yeah, or like you understand the inertia
Sure.
in the systems, right? And then I feel like a word of precaution is like if you are a clinician or if you are an insider, I think sometimes you tend to over-index your own lived experiences, and you under-index what are people paying for, how can you scale, etc. I've seen that on a couple of occasions, even though I'd say like, better to be a clinician, right? You understand things better, but like, it's not 100% clear.
And is there sort of a profile you look for in the healthcare founders that you back, or any trends you've seen of what kind of background or experience has made for a successful founder building in this industry?
Yeah, I think it's these are obviously great examples. I think for us, at Local Globe, we obviously back founders in general who are obsessed with their problem and are in it for the long haul and are not phased with the ups and downs. In healthcare, we also really like outsiders. I think if you look at some of the founders that we've backed, so Mustafa building Automata, he actually was an architect to begin with. Co-mined James actually was a high school dropout. The founder building early health is he was actually built Milltown to begin with, and so therefore you have these outsiders, as you say, have a beginner's mindset, and so there are then these overarching personality types that I think will enable to push through. I think what I've seen work really well in healthcare, and what's really important, is that you have an ability to obviously bring together a lot of different disparate types of people who are very specialized in their function, and bring them along their journey. So ability to communicate the vision and bring people along is is obviously hugely important, especially in healthcare.
And can I add something, Cameron? Also, like I totally agree, and it's a unique time in a sense that people have the awareness that to be healthy later on, you need to do stuff now.
Exactly.
And that actually connects consumer and healthcare, because now we can operate in this zone that while people are healthy. And I think that also makes things a little bit easier, because as people like as a consumer entrepreneur, to focus on the later stage of a patient for me was a bit more a dangerous zone, but we can build an amazing product when people are still healthy, which actually creates a unique environment also for non-healthcare background entrepreneurs, I feel like.
Very true. I think the definition of health is broadening for a lot of people. One thing I've noticed is, perhaps more than other industries, combining that outsider beginner's mind with an industry insider at some point is a really powerful combination. I've seen that with you and Martin. We have a company in the US called Sesame, which similarly has kind of an outsider disruptive mindset, but they've got a real healthcare expert in the mix. So it is interesting in that way. This last decade, I'm very optimistic about the future of healthcare tech in Europe, but this last decade has seen some false promises and some fairly public flameouts, particularly in digital health. What are some lessons that we can learn from what happened in this last decade, and how can we move forward and make sure we don't repeat them? I would like to hear actually from both Dag and Julie on this topic, if we can.
Go for it.
Please.
Can you say the question again?
Well, basically, without naming names, well, we can name names, I guess. Babylon Health was a great aspiration for many people. It went public. It obviously didn't have the ending that we were all hoping. I think we've seen another couple of companies go through similar hyper trajectories of growth and then maybe not fulfilling the promise that we had hoped. So how do we sort of learn from what happened in the past decade to make sure that we don't repeat the same mistakes, both as investors and as entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the lessons have been really well learned, and especially that approaches that have been taken by these two founders. I think that you have to obviously be not only patient-centric, but also know the system that you're selling into, and really build the business that is meeting the demands of whether it's clinicians or patients, and raising the amount of capital to reach the inflection points that enable you to then continue to build. I think those are some of the lessons. I think Babylon maybe expanded way too quickly, and also and then struggled to get the traction that enabled them to raise further.
Okay, Dag, I know you have strong views on this one.
Well, I think growing humbler with age, right? I think don't run out of cash seems to be the big problem, right? And I think it's very easy to sit here in 24 and be judgmental over how people act at 21.
Yes.
When you have 500 million in the bank. So I have tremendous respect for what Babylon and others have done, right? And I think they've also actually educated quite a lot of good staff into the ecosystem. So I think they achieved a lot, right? I think if one thing, I think when you have an equity narrative, which is AI, but you have a company that's service provision, that's going to come home at some point, right?
Right.
It's hard to pay 500 engineers doing AI when you 10-20% margins, right? And I think that's a good lesson.
Sensible. Do you have any lessons from Gorillas, Khan, that you're going to apply here?
I'm not going to give an example about Gorillas, but I think there's a really nice example which is applicable to healthcare, which is Slack. So I think a lot of healthcare products, they are either begins with B2B or B2B2C. But if you think about Slack, it's B2C2B. So what I mean by that, Slack first appeared as an amazing product for developers. Then developers came to the CEO and said, Kagan, Slack, we for sure get it. It's good for us, good for the company. So what I try to say is, where's that amazing consumer product that makes the other Bs, like the doctors, like the insurances, like no-brainer to adapt. So I think the one learning that we actually take it to our core in how we approach things is how Slack has done this. Can we replicate this in healthcare? So create an amazing consumer product, focus on the customer really, and don't really think about what's happening other than that. And then it becomes a no-brainer to get that product and try to make partnerships. So we try to create this pool by creating a fantastic consumer product. So I think that's a really nice learning on software as a service that I believe can be transferable to healthcare.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is that, like in all startups, focus on your customer, be customer-centric. But in healthcare, it can maybe sometimes be a little more complex or not as obvious who the actual customer is. And so you just want to be laser-focused on that from the beginning, and then make sure you capitalize the company in a way that is sustainable for the type of business, the type of margins, the type of revenue you can generate. We don't have too much more time. I know this could go on for hours with these panelists, but this is about technology at the end of the day. So what is a trend in technology for healthcare that you are most excited about? So either a trend or a specific technology that you think we should all be paying attention to. Start with you.
Well, I think like population health combined with like real tight AI and workflow, not just like a thin layer of AI, but like really going into, these patients should be treated in this way to reduce cost and improve outcomes. And I think actually, to your first question, I think UK is pretty well positioned there. I think at least they have the ambition to do pop health seriously. So yeah.
The benefits of a centralized system too, right? So.
Indeed, yeah.
Okay. Julia, over to you.
Yeah, I think your first question was around like in terms of how we are living longer. We're actually living 20 years longer on average, but actually 50% of that is in poor health. And so, and actually depending on where you live, to the point around population health, even in just Camden, whether you live in Somerstown versus you live in Highgate, you live 20 years less if you live in Somerstown. And so what I'm really excited about in terms of technology is actually not just one single technology, but it's the advancement of whether it's AI, materials, sensors, hardware, and it's a combination of all of these coming together and making that available to a much broader population set, which means that more people will be able to live longer and healthier and full lives.
Thank you. Kagan?
I'm going to give a counterintuitive answer, or maybe a bit provocative one. So my answer is loneliness. Yeah, I think loneliness is a very interesting concept that came with technology, like doom scrolling, even AI, girlfriends, boyfriends, like the technology is driving people or establishing a deeper connection with machines than human-to-human interactions. And this trend can either accelerate, or there will be more real, there will be products that will foster real interactions. And this is what we try to do it. And health is a very interesting concept that, for example, you can easily give this answer as AI is a big thing and that's going to drive it. But there are hundreds of companies that focus on AI, and they position this also in front of the customer. But actually, in customer's mind, there's like crazy stuff. Should I begin my sports on Monday? I'm jealous. I want to brag. I want to do this and that. So, and they're all loneliness-driven problems. Can the product own this feeling and make people alive and get out? I think that's an interesting question, and that's what we want to tackle with this product as well. So my short answer is loneliness. I think loneliness is a trend that's, just to give one example, male suicidal rates are 4 times more than women suicidal rates at the moment. So like things are really showing some outcome, and I hope we tackle that loneliness trend with healthcare apps.
Amazing. So population health, health equality across populations, the loneliness epidemic. I'll contribute. I'm excited about furthering the research into food as medicine and making that really tailored and specific to people's own biomarkers. I mean, we know obesity is a huge challenge, and maybe there's something else than this wonder drug that can tackle that. Maybe food could be part of that solution as well. But thank you so much, Kagan, Julia, Dag. That was super insightful, and thank you all for listening.